Do you guys remember when Mario and the Rabbids had a crossover for the first time in, like, forever? Well, it happened. We actually got a crossover between both franchises. People were thinking that this game was not going to be good, but they were proven wrong. The game was actually good. So was it too surprising we were going to get a sequel? Well, after all, the game did sell well, and we did. Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope is a continuation of the first game. The game has a more grand story, the environments feel less linear, the combat is better, there's brand new characters in the added addition of the Sparks, and overall I like this game, even more than the first game, and that's not to say I dislike the first game, but this game improves upon various aspects that make it better than the first one. So this isn't really a review of the game. I played it back when it came out and I completed it, but this year I decided I wanted to 100% complete it, and I did. I'm not going to be really touching on the game's story, but I will be getting into some of the characters and the environments, and of course combat, the added addition of the Sparks, but mostly I just want to get into this game's combat system because I like it. I will be talking about the DLCs a little bit, but not for long. So, this game overhauls the characters with new weapons, but also gives the rabbit variant of the characters actual voice lines, well, actual voices, like they have full-on voices to them now. And it makes them really stand out as characters. Even your companion from the first game, Beepo, has a voice, and he's voiced perfectly. Hands down, he's honestly one of my favorite Mario companions of all time, and his whole dynamic with our new companion right beside us, Genie, is really entertaining to watch. But giving the rabbits voices makes me tell that they are completely different from the main Mario cast. Rabbit Mario is this bodybuilder guy that would rather get the ladies. Rabbit Luigi is pretty energetic and is like the young kid of the group. Rabbit Peach is practically the same from the first game, but it does really make her stand out having a voice to her. I will get into the newer characters later, but the characters now have new weapons to them. Mario has dual blasters. In combat, you can shoot at 2 enemies if you wanna, or just home in on one. Rabbit Mario has these giant hands that he can use to punch enemies, and you could also be at risk if you try to do this depending on where you're punching. And I don't really need to go into the rest, but giving Luigi a crossbow is pretty dope. These new additions of weapons honestly does spice up the gameplay quite a bit, because you gotta learn how you're gonna use these characters in combat, and realize what strengths and weaknesses they can have in battle. So I'll get into the new characters now. Edge is the first new addition of a rabbit character that is non-Mario related. All she can do is just throw her sword at enemies. It's pretty simple, but I enjoy using her. She's the one character I would use the most in my party, right next to Mario, Rabbit Peach, and Bowser. And speaking of Bowser, he's in this game. He has a giant cannon blaster that he can shoot at enemies, and this can be quite useful, but also fatal to you. He's kinda on par with Peach when it comes to the weapon class, but I'd say he's a far more stronger character. And finally, we have Rabbit Rosalina. I don't really like using her. She's kinda like Yoshi for me, where I just never really liked using Yoshi all that much, so I would just never really use Yoshi in battle. But she can make enemies fall asleep, so that's quite useful. I think they make for nice new additions. I know people might miss Yoshi and Rabbit Yoshi, but I'm fine with them being gone. Bowser and Edge I think make up for it, and I do think their roles in the story are quite interesting. Bowser wants to get revenge on Cursa for taking his army, even knowing it's only a Goomba, well, a few Goombas, a bomb, well, many bombs, a Thwomp as like a backpack for these guys, and also a Magic Koopa. I really wish there were more Mario enemies in this game. I do think it's something that the first game really lacks. I wanted some Mario enemies in it. I mean, yeah, we have a Goomba, but where's the Koopa Troopas? Where are the other Mario enemies? I think it's something that really lacks from the first game, and I get the premise is the rabbits taking over Mario's world, but I would have liked to see some Mario enemies. And in this game, you only get a few of them. But I will say that this game does have a bit more of an identity to it, more than the first game, and it does stand out far more. Edge, she left her Spark Hunter group behind and is now joining you trying to save the Sparks. And Rabbit Rosalina wants to find the real Rosalina. The story is more engaging to follow, and what makes it more engaging has to be, well, you actually get to learn about the world you're going to. You'll encounter new characters and just, well, learn about them by exploring the world you're in. I will say I'm kinda nostalgic for the first game's worlds, but this game just has far more interesting environments. I think this mechanical-based one might be my favorite, but also maybe Beacon Beach, or the one with the Wiggler train. Now I know this game has a lot to offer. I haven't even touched the DLC. You have a skill tree, you can get different weapons, you can change your party out and not even have Mario be a part of it, and all of that is pretty nice. And you know, the skill tree is a pretty nice addition because it lets you customize your own moveset, but Oh wait, I forgot about the logs. These are also a nice addition, because it lets you learn even more about the worlds. But I need to get into the combat. What can I say except, well, it's pretty great. The combat is just really great in this game. It might be my favorite in a Mario RPG. I know it might be debatable calling this series an RPG, but in this game you're able to do that, so I'm gonna call it an RPG. I'm glad that they gave you far more movement. You're no longer stuck to making a pathway. Now you can just freely move around and attack as many enemies as you can. But they still can attack you. This is a strategy game after all. And you gotta figure out how these enemies work in battle. What kind of attacks do they have? How can you weaken these enemies? Some enemies might have fire. Some enemies might not let you use your weapons. Some enemies will home in at you, even knowing you can do that too. Or sometimes you can attack enemies even if you're stuck in place, but you also could be at risk. Really, it's up to you on how you approach battling with whatever characters you have, and figure out what you can do. I guess the enemies and bosses is what keeps the combat interesting, even if I think the bosses are kinda weak in this game. I mean, I definitely do like some of them. I enjoy the Wiggler one, even the final boss. And sometimes they can twist up the battling. I do quite enjoy those ones where you have to pair up with another character. But those secret bosses you can find that have the darkness on them, they kinda suck to be honest. Now I don't want to forget about the sparks, because those definitely spice up combat even more. By giving you a little ability, you do have to wait for it to charge up. Some are better than others, but I like the addition of the sparks. I just don't particularly have a favorite one. Maybe some from the DLCs, and speaking of the DLCs, I never played the Tower of Doom. It just never particularly interested me. Maybe that's the peak of combat for this game. I do think The Last Spark Hunter is a good DLC. Even the next one that follows after it. They try adding more little mechanics to the game and expand upon it even more with its combat, and having one of them expand upon the story some more, and being the return of Rayman, and I like using Rayman in his own DLC, is very nice, and they honestly might have the best environments in the entire series, or even the game itself. So I think I got into everything I wanted to talk about. I know there's a bit more I could have touched on, but I just wanted to share this game with the world and go into how much I like the combat of it. It's a good continuation of the first game, and I would recommend it, but it did underperform when you can't find physical copies of it anymore. You still can, but now it only has these digital codes inside of the game cartridge, so no physical one. So, I hope this isn't the end of Mario and Rabbids together. I want to see these two together once again, someday, no matter what it could be, but I also don't want to see this series come to an end because I like it. I guess what I'm trying to say here is don't let Edge die. Put her in Smash Brothers or something. Thanks for watching, and Luigi with a crossbow.